So I want to welcome you to the Healthy Aging class, where we take basic yoga postures and we do a lot of variations. But today you have a treat. Today we are going to do restorative yoga. Many of you have talked about the fact that at the change of seasons, it's been quite warm for December right now. And you can probably hear it in my voice as well. My nostrils are a little congested as well. Plus I have earbuds in, so it makes it a little bit tinny as well. And some of you were saying that you feel like you're getting a cold, your sinuses are all blocked up, your face. So we're going to do some restorative practice today. And I'm just going to review again for many of you ways to come into this first posture. So I'm going to demonstrate the first posture, and then I will show you variations of what to do. So if you have a bolster, whether it's round or it's singular, it's a square like this or oblong, you can just take that and place it right on the floor. I'm going to show you a couple of things. So you can take your butt on the floor, and you can lay your spine right back on the bolster. You will most likely need a block or a folded blanket or a throw pillow or two. I need to fold my pillow. And then you take your legs and you open them wide. Not too wide, just enough that you get a chest opener. So if you have a bolster and you're here, that's fine. If when you come here, it's too much on your shoulder, you can take several throw pillows or one blanket or a big bed pillow if you happen to be in your bedroom. And you can put it underneath your arm. What that does is it raises the arm to open up the collarbones. Okay? Now, if you do not have a bolster, bolsters are very handy. So if you do have a bolster and you're already there, just stay there and just continue to watch your breath for a moment. If you have a blanket, you can do one of two things. Is you can make like a little accordion, 5 folds or so. Your butt would be on the floor, and you turn the fringe edge down, and that becomes your pillow. And it gives you a nice low chest opener where the bolster might be too high. You can also take the blanket, open it up, put your blocks over it, and then roll this up. And this becomes your bolster. If you're on carpeting, this is something that I do quite frequently when I didn't have my bolster around, is you can just simply roll your mat up, and your mat becomes your bolster. And then you lay your spine right over that rolled up mat. So wherever you are, I'm going to come back to here. If you have, the other thing that you can do if you want more of an opener is you take one of your blocks into the mid-level, and then you put the bolster on top of that, and then you come into the posture here. So wherever you are, whichever one, you might be trying different ways of your bolster. Find one that works, and then you can take your blanket and just place it over your pelvis, or you can open it up and cover yourself. And your eyes will close, and just settle in to the pose. The goal of these postures is that you get gentle openings, and you just lie and breathe. So whichever position you are in with whatever bolster, the position is this: buttocks on the floor, spine over the bolster, whatever bolster you're using. You can sense the gentle release of the shoulders, the arms, and the fingers. Now, some of you may find that you need something underneath your thighs or knees. If that is for you, put another bolster or some pillows or a rolled up blanket, and then just be. Begin to sense the cool air at the base of the nostrils. And as you sense the coolness at the base of the nostrils, you can sense the lower abdomen expand. And as you exhale and you feel warmth, the belly falls. So you feel supported, you feel grounded. And for those of us today that are just either whether you're just tired, whether it's the fact that you feel a little under the weather, thank you for showing up. There is a yoga practice that is right for any way that you feel. But restorative yoga is wonderful when you're tired, when you're achy, and you just feel like you need some movement, but you don't have energy for movement. So we're going to be here for another several minutes. So just take a moment to again find that breath and rest in your awareness of breath. Now, for those of you who are very stuffy in the nose, when my allergies were at the height of problem for me, I found it utterly amazing that the longer I did my yoga practice, the more my nostrils started to open. And I found that conscious breathing allowed me to find openness. So notice your breath and notice whether you begin to find it to be less stuffy as you practice. But begin to notice here, not just the chest opening, not just the rise and the fall of the lower abdomen, but actually bring your attention to the outer edges of the nostrils. And begin to notice where you feel the coolness coming in. You may find one nostril is definitely more open, has more airflow. Now go to the nostril that does not feel so open and focus how the breath comes in and see if you can visualize the touch of breath on the inside of your nostril lining. And watch that same side as you exhale. And begin to, if you're starting to find that you're really congested, just stay with the breath wherever you can go. But maybe you begin to notice that there is a little bit of an opening, and you can begin to breathe through both nostrils. You determine where your focus is going to be. If you are interested as you're working here to come into Konasana, you can gently take the soles of your feet together. And again, you can take, I'm looking for my other block is under my bolster. You can take blankets if you are interested. I'm not interested in you feeling tightness. I'm interested in you feeling a letting go. So support if you want to go into the next posture, just staying with where your spine is, your torso. Just take the soles of the feet together and then support your thighs. When you do restorative yoga, it is very nice to have lots of props, lots of things for you to draw from with your hands. Like I went to look for my other block and realized it was underneath my bolster. So I'm improvising on this side. I'm using my folded pillow. And now I just begin to continue to watch the breath at the base of the nostrils. I continue to sense the opening of my collarbones. I continue to work to get the breath low in the belly, expanding that lower abdomen. But now I can also sense the inner thighs releasing to the outer thighs. Begin to notice, whichever posture you're in, that the breath has begun to slow down. It has begun to get a little bit longer on your inhalations and your exhalations. So you should have enough support that you don't feel a pull, just a nice release. You can also, if you had a bolster underneath your thighs as well, you could have just take the soles of the feet and your bolster, your thighs would rest on your bolster. That's if you had two bolsters. We'll just be here for a little bit longer. You know, this is a time of year where we feel very harried, even though we're in the pandemic. There's just, again, so much anxiety around this time of year. And especially, you know, when you hear people say to you, your family, I wish we could be together. And you live, whether you live several miles away or across the miles. So you just want to, every day, you want to do something restorative, something that just lets you be. When you're ready, you'll just pull out whatever you had underneath you, except if you have a bolster underneath your thighs, just go back to the original position of straightening your legs. to release the hips once again. And we'll just take about 5 or 6 breaths here before we move into the next pose. So when you're ready, we're going to start by simply putting the feet on the ground. And we're going to shift our right buttocks to the left. So we're going to come into a twist here. So how we're going to do this is we're going to roll onto our side. Keep your bolster right where it is. And I'm going to show you what many of you may need. It's not something I need, but many of you may need it. So first I'll show you the pose without it. So my right hip is going to be right at my bolster. I'm going to take my glasses off here because it doesn't work with glasses. Your rib cage is going to lay on the bolster. So I'm going to put my hands on either side of the bolster. I'm going to lift my heart and I'm going to place my side of my body right on the bolster and turn my head to the left. My knees are bent, but you can see they're not on top of each other. Now, for many of you, having a pillow, a blanket between your knees will be helpful. Having your forearms on the floor is a must. So here, if your left arm is sort of hanging in the air, use your block, use your pillows, and support your arm. This will allow you to drop your shoulder. So now we're going to breathe into the top portion, the left rib to the hip joint. Okay? So if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat. I also like to take my blanket because I don't need it between my knees. And I like to cover my legs because when you get into restorative yoga, it's quieting, so it cools you down. And then lift your hip and move it away from the bolster. This just gives you some length. And now we're just going to breathe into the left lower rib down to the left hip joint. Make sure your elbow and hand are in alignment. Don't turn your hand and your elbow out. That's going to make you feel tight. So try to just take your arms like more into a goalpost on the floor. And breathe. Stay with the focus of your breathing. Make sure you have enough support that you don't feel that you're hurting. Notice whether you can feel it all the way up into your shoulder blades. We'll take maybe 6 more breaths here. When you begin to notice that you may be ready, you slide your hands back, push yourself up, and just come up to sitting. You may wish to keep your eyes closed at this point. Your back will be towards your bolster. And notice how the lower back feels on your left side as well as your right side. Notice the difference between the two from taking that breath and coaxing the breath into that top side, that left side. You're going to pardon my back as you're going to see the back of my body here. We're going to turn to the left. We're going to do the same posture on the other side, and note that your body might feel a little different. So we have now our left hip next to the bolster. Our knees are askew. I actually have my left foot curled underneath onto the right shin, just because that's where my legs want to go. Where do yours want to go? And I'm going to lift my left rib cage and place it on the bolster, lifting my bottom hip, placing my hands on the floor, my forearms, and then breathing into the right lower rib down to the right hip joint. Notice the differences from one side to the other. Forearms are on the floor. Make sure that you stack whatever you need under your right elbow to fingers. See if you can make sure you're dropping your shoulders. And then finally begin to walk your hands back. Come back up to sitting. Eyes are closed. Notice the back body. And then if you have a wall or the back of a chair, just lean, chair that doesn't move, like a big chair, sofa. And then take your legs and open them wide. Take your pillows and place them, each one, underneath your knees, okay, because of the hamstring tightness. So make sure your knees are bent. So I will use my little pillows here. Okay. And I'm angling them in such a way that my toes can be standing up. If you have, this does not work with a block or a blanket, but if you have a bolster or you have your rolled up mat, if you were using a rolled up mat, we won't be here very long. I just want you to experience. You can just take your bolster and put it on an angle and let the head come forward. You can also take your block and put your block, that gives you a little bit more height. And just let the forehead rest. So you're not trying to push your body down, you're just letting it rest. Whenever the mind is touching something, it quiets the mind. And as I said, we won't be here very long. I just want you to, if you have the ability, to experience the quietness that happens from the mind touching an object, whether it's your hands in crocodile or it's your bolster. Okay. So we'll just be here for a few more breaths. And then we'll come into the next posture. The next posture is going to be a chest opener. And I think most of you will be able to do this. Again, if it's something that I'm showing and it doesn't feel right to you, put it on the chat so that we can do something different. This works very well whether you're on a bolster or you have your blanket that you have made into an accordion. Many years ago at the studio, if you've been with me, you did this posture with the accordion folded blanket. So in this posture, I'm going to sit on my bolster. And I'm going to have my shoulder blades. Let me move this down so you can see my shoulder blades. My head and my shoulders and my shoulder blades will be on the ground. And your feet will be a little bit wider than hip width apart. And again, we get this nice chest opener. Our spine is supported. You're welcome to have your legs straight and the toes can flare out, giving you a very deep opening here, or you can have your feet on the floor. So try that. And then you're just letting go in your tailbone. So it's a gentle opening for the chest, for the arms. Again, breathing becomes a little bit easier here. And whether you keep your legs wider than hip width apart or you extend your legs. So now I get into that lower psoas muscle all the way to the top of the psoas muscle. The ribs are opening. Everything is just opening. So you open the side body, we open the back body, and now again, opening the front of the body to really let go of the back body. If your arms wanted to come into goalpost or overhead, you could also go there. Each position gives you a little bit different sensation. Your head can rock side to side. And you can go back and forth. If you've tried to straighten your legs and you don't like it, put the feet back on the floor. Or maybe you do like it, but it becomes a little bit more intense. And so at that point, you'll put your feet back on the floor, and we'll just be here for about another minute or two. Now, if you've been having your legs extended, do put them on the floor. And then just begin to shift from side to side. You're not rocking off of your bolster. You're just shifting side to side. And if you want, you can let one knee turn in and then the other knee. So you can play with what works here. I just moved my feet really wide and I'm dropping my right knee in towards the bolster. And then I'm lifting my right leg and moving my left foot to a comfortable place to drop my left knee in. So you can just lift your buttocks and not drop your knee, or you can go a little deeper and drop the knees, one knee at a time, in. And then eventually I'm going to drop my knees. I'm going to walk my feet back in. I'm going to roll off of the bolster, put my arm underneath my head, and I'm going to put my little pillow under my head. And then just bring the knees here in a comfortable place. If you need to have a blanket or a pillow between your knees, do that. And then find your way back up to sitting for the next position. We're going to continue with the opening of the chest as much as I would. We're going to take your bolster or whatever you're using, your blanket. This is still the accordion, but you can also just have the blanket in its normal fashion here. And we're going to put it on the mat. We'll just have the bolster. I'm not going to use the bolster for this. I think for most of you, if you have this bolster, it might be too high. You're welcome to use it. Okay, I love using my bolster for what I'm going to show you. So we're going to come on back onto our right side, and we're going to take our head onto our pillow or our block. And that's way too low for me. So let's see if this works. Okay. Now you'll see my hand is out in front. I know that most of you might need to have your hand here. I'm trying not to jiggle the you're in place. So I think I need to have a block. My pillow didn't work. Okay. And now we're on the side. And your elbow, your left elbow, is just right at your side. Now, if you are somebody who is able to take your arm straight out, you can also, I'm going to show many variations. So right now you're here, right? But some of you, like me, can take my arm straight out, and then I can take my block and stand it up. And I get a deep side opening. So whether you're here or here, Doesn't matter. For most of you, this is way challenging because of your tightness in your shoulders. It's a nice opening, but it might be too much. So just stay here. We're going to do a minute to a minute and a half on each side. So if you're worried about your breathing because you have shortness of breath or your allergies are bothering you, just keep your arm right at your waist or your hips. Sometimes it's fun to take the hand and turn it backwards so that really opens my collarbone. So just take a moment here. And you can notice this time that you can feel the right rib cage pressing into your blanket or your bolster, whatever you're using. So I went back to my bolster because the blanket for me didn't give me any opening. So for you, a blanket might be sufficient. So another few breaths here. And then we're going to find our way from here into Sphinx pose using your bolster, your blanket, whatever you have, whatever you're lying on right now. So take maybe 5 or 6 more breaths into both the bottom and the top ribs. You're not on the front, you're right on your side. And then when we're ready, we'll just roll right onto our belly. So now the bolster or the blanket, whatever you're using as your bolster, is right on your ribs. And your elbows come right out, your forearms come right out in front of you. Your feet come behind you. In restorative, we're not working to contract, but if that's what feels good to you, feel fine to contract. It's your practice. Contract navel center to spine. But in a restorative practice, I just want to feel my breath. I just want to breathe into my left and my right rib cage, and into the side body and into the back body. And you can be here for a while if it feels right to you. But we're using, again, as this is a transition. So when we're ready, we'll roll onto our left side, excuse the back. Take whatever you're using, your ribs, your lower rib cage is on the bolster, right under your rib cage. And then either bring your hands overhead or have your elbow at your waist. Settle into the breath. Notice the breath at the bottom of your left rib cage. Just keep working to let go. And then when you feel ready, come up to sit. We're going to keep the blanket or your bolster. If you were on a bolster, I'm going to suggest you use your blanket here. We're going to take the blanket now and place it where before it was on our rib cage. Now it's going to be on our lower back. So your butt will be on the floor. And your lower back, you're going to take that bolster and place it underneath your knees. So the lower back has the blanket. My feet are going to start on the floor. Personally, I don't have anything under my head, but you might need something under your head. You can start with your feet a little bit wider than hip width apart, or just let the legs come right over the bolster. So again, we get this nice opening in the front of the body to release the back body. So we worked the front of the body, the sides of the body, and the back body. And in so doing, we work the top half of the body and the lower half of the body. This is not Shavasana. So we're still now working the front of the body, but now that we've done all of this work, notice the breath again. Notice the ease, the opening that you might have in the lower ribs above the pelvis. And just take some time to let go here and breathe. Now you could definitely use your bolster if you wanted more height. You could use 2 blankets or some throw pillows with the blanket, whatever height you want. But at the end of the day, it's not about height. It's about breathing into the lower abdomen and really expanding your consciousness and allowing, notice, is the nostrils a little bit more open? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe it's just a very small amount, or maybe it's much larger. I'm going to raise my arms overhead just to get a different stretch laterally. And I'm going to pull the belly in and drop my shoulders, and then maybe come into goalpost. Again, these are all variations. It doesn't mean that you have to do it. If you're comfortable right where you are, if you feel that's enough, just stay there. The minds are harried. The body can be harried and frantic and tense and tight. So these postures just get us to breathe, to begin to let go of that tension, that tightness. When you feel that you no longer want to have the blanket underneath you, place your feet back on the floor, lift your bottom up, remove it, or roll over to your side to remove it. Take that blanket over your pelvis and over your ribs. And you can take the soles of your feet back into Konasana for a little bit if you would like, or just straighten your legs out for relaxation. Watching the breath. Breathing into the outer edges of your nostrils. Can you breathe into both nostrils? Does one feel more congested than the other? And even in that congestion, does it still feel as congested as it was? Is it a little bit more open than it was? Just notice. It is what it is for you. And breathe. And once again, in this posture of Shavasana, you have given yourself a gift. So notice this gift, and notice how the back of the body released. Notice how the mind is truly focused on watching the slow and even breathing. If you're very congested, lying flat on the floor is not recommended. So if you are somebody who is still very congested, think about the way we started the practice, where we were propped up. That would be a good place to go again now for Shavasana. You'll find if when you go to sleep and you're congested, it's also the perfect place to fall asleep. So prop yourself up with pillows under your spine and under your head and under your knees for sleep. But we're not sleeping, we're resting. So we want the mind to stay awake and just allow everything about the body to rest in the awareness of your breathing. Is your breath a little slower now? The tops of the shoulders down to the fingertips, resting. The back of the neck to the tailbone along the spinal column, resting. The pelvis is rested so that the legs can release away from one another. And now the only thing left is to be a witness, as you have in this restorative practice, been a witness to your body breathing. When you feel ready, wiggle your fingers and your toes. Stretch your body. And then again, bring your knees into your chest and roll over to your side. You are always welcome just to stay and find your way into the rest of your day as you desire. But for those of you who are ready, find your way up to sitting with your eyes closed. And just sit with yourself, sit with your breath, sit with your body. Feeling calm, feeling quiet, feeling contained. Notice the breath at the base of the nostrils. Namaste.